December 10th, 2025. U.S. forces just executed the largest oil tanker seizure in American history off Venezuela's coast. Trump's administration calls it a major hit against networks funding foreign terrorists. However, with American warships circling the Caribbean, one question remains: how far will Trump go? Hit that subscribe as we dive into it. The tension between Washington and Caracas didn't start yesterday, but what happened on December 10th marked a dramatic escalation. For years, Venezuela has been under crippling U.S. sanctions designed to choke off its oil exports and pressure the Maduro regime. These sanctions, first imposed in 2019, were meant to restrict Venezuela's ability to generate revenue from its most valuable resource, oil. Venezuela sits on some of the world's largest proven oil reserves. But under Maduro's leadership, the country has spiraled into economic collapse, political repression, and what the U.S. alleges is state-sponsored narco-terrorism. The Trump administration has accused Maduro of running a criminal enterprise that traffics drugs, destabilizes the region, and partners with America's adversaries like Iran and China. So when intelligence revealed that a sanctioned oil tanker was actively transporting crude from Venezuela and Iran to foreign markets, likely China, Trump gave the green light for a full-scale seizure operation. Video footage released by the Department of Justice shows Coast Guard personnel descending from helicopters in a coordinated assault on the tanker's deck. The armed operatives moved quickly, securing key areas of the ship and taking control of the bridge within minutes. According to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the tanker had been part of an illicit shipping network for years, quietly moving sanctioned oil across international waters in violation of U.S. law. The vessel had been previously sanctioned by the United States for its involvement in supporting foreign terrorist organizations, and intelligence agencies had been tracking its movements for months. The operation was executed under a seizure warrant, meaning it had full legal backing from the U.S. government. Trump, speaking from the cabinet room at the White House, didn't mince words.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large.
When asked what would happen to the oil aboard, Trump responded casually, "We keep it, I guess." The bluntness of that statement sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. Was the United States now openly confiscating foreign assets on the high seas? Venezuela's reaction was fast and predictable. President Maduro took to the streets of Caracas, leading thousands of supporters in a defiant march through the capital. At a rally, he sang and danced to a song with the refrain,
"Don't worry, be happy,"
mocking what he called U.S. imperialism. But his message was clear. Venezuela would not bow to American pressure. "We say no to interventionism, no to plans for destabilization and regime change," Maduro declared. The U.S. government should focus on governing its own country. Venezuelan officials accused Washington of piracy, arguing that the seizure violated international law and constituted theft of sovereign resources. Foreign Minister Yvonne Gill called it an act of aggression and warned that Venezuela would take the matter to international courts. Maduro also invoked the historic vision of Gran Colombia, calling for South American unity against what he described as U.S. aggression. But behind the rhetoric, there's real concern in Caracas, with American warships patrolling the Caribbean, deadly airstrikes hitting alleged drug operations, and now a major oil tanker seized. The pressure on Maduro's regime has never been higher. So how did it come to this? The Trump administration has been ramping up its campaign against Venezuela for months. In what's been dubbed Operation Southern Spear, the U.S. deployed a massive naval presence to the Caribbean. Thus includes the USS Theodore Roosevelt, the world's largest aircraft carrier. Officially, the mission is to combat drug trafficking. Venezuela and neighboring Colombia are major transit routes for cocaine and other narcotics heading to the United States. But critics argue the operation is a thinly veiled attempt at regime change. Over the past few weeks, U.S. forces have struck more than 20 alleged drug boats in the region, killing at least 87 people according to Venezuelan officials. The White House insists these were legitimate military targets tied to narco-terrorism, but Maduro has called the strikes extrajudicial killings and accused the U.S. of violating Venezuelan sovereignty. Trump, however, has made his position clear. In a recent interview, he said Maduro's days are numbered and warned that the U.S. would take whatever action necessary to protect American interests. The tanker seizure fits squarely into that strategy. It's not just about stopping drug trafficking, it's about cutting off the financial lifelines that keep Maduro's regime afloat. But there's another layer to this story that's often overlooked: the role of Iran and China. According to U.S. intelligence, the seized tanker was part of a broader sanctions-busting network involving Iran. For years, Venezuela and Iran have been collaborating to circumvent U.S. sanctions, with Iranian tankers delivering fuel to Venezuela and Venezuelan tankers shipping crude to Asian markets. Much of this oil ends up in China, which has become Venezuela's largest trading partner. China imports millions of barrels of Venezuelan crude each year, providing Maduro's regime with desperately needed revenue. The U.S. alleges that this network also generates cash for Iranian-backed terrorist organizations, making it a national security threat. By seizing the tanker, the Trump administration is sending a message not just to Caracas, but to Tehran and Beijing as well. Former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, described the operation as American exceptionalism writ large, praising Trump for taking decisive action against what he called one of the most odious regimes on the face of the earth. But critics warn that this kind of aggressive posture could escalate into something much bigger. So what happens next? That's the question on everyone's mind. The tanker itself is now in U.S. custody, and its oil cargo worth millions of dollars will likely be sold, with the proceeds going to the U.S. Treasury. But the bigger question is whether this is just the beginning of a broader military campaign. Trump has hinted at possible land-based operations in Venezuela, and Pentagon officials have confirmed that contingency plans are in place. During his press conference, Trump also issued a warning to Colombia, saying its president better be listening because he's going to be next if drug trafficking doesn't stop. That statement raised eyebrows, as Colombia has historically been a close U.S. ally in the war on drugs. Some analysts believe Trump is laying the groundwork for expanded military action across the region, using the fight against narco-terrorism as justification. But there's also domestic political pressure to consider. Many Americans, particularly younger voters, are wary of foreign interventions after decades of wars in the Middle East. The America First movement that helped elect Trump is divided on whether regime change operations align with that vision. Venezuela, meanwhile, is digging in for a fight. Maduro has vowed to resist U.S. pressure, and there are no signs he's preparing to step down voluntarily. His government has the backing of Russia and China, both of which have strategic interests in keeping him in power. Russia has military advisors on the ground in Venezuela, and China holds billions of dollars in Venezuelan debt. If the U.S. pushes too hard, there's a real risk of triggering a broader geopolitical confrontation. Some European allies have also expressed concern, warning that unilateral U.S. military action could destabilize the entire region. The Organization of American States has called for dialogue, but the Trump administration has shown little interest in negotiation. In Trump's view, Maduro is a dictator and a criminal, and the only acceptable outcome is his removal from power. But regime change is never simple, and history is littered with examples of U.S. interventions that didn't go as planned. Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, all were supposed to be quick, clean operations that would bring democracy and stability. Instead, they led to years of chaos and bloodshed. As of today, the situation remains fluid. The seized tanker is being held at an undisclosed location, and U.S. officials are reviewing its cargo manifests and crew logs for evidence of further sanctions violations. Venezuela has filed a formal complaint with the United Nations, accusing the United States of violating international maritime law. Maduro's government is also threatening retaliation, though it's unclear what form that might take given Venezuela's limited military capabilities compared to the United States. Is another tanker seizure imminent? Are U.S. Special Forces preparing for a ground raid? The White House isn't saying, but the message is clear. Trump is playing hardball, and Maduro is running out of options. The seizure of this Venezuelan oil tanker, on one hand, demonstrates American resolve to enforce sanctions and combat what it sees as a criminal regime. On the other hand, it raises serious questions about sovereignty, international law, and the risks of military escalation. The largest tanker ever seized is now in U.S. hands, but the real question remains, what will Trump do next? Kindly subscribe, like, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.